Hi there and welcome to our e-course. Thank you so much for signing up. I really hope that this gives you a taster of what we offer at SheBirths, and it also helps to give you great tools to use in preparation for your labour, but also to utilise throughout your pregnancy as well. So our first lesson today is mindset, and it's probably the most challenging topic, and yet what I've experienced and noticed and researched over the last 10 years, it's actually the most important lesson that we need to understand. Because the majority of us as women think that birth just happens somewhere below our waists, but actually a lot comes from what's going on up in our minds. And contrary to probably a lot of the stories we've been told, we actually do have a sense of control, and we can actually direct our labour in certain ways. So what's important and what's crucial to understand is how the mind actually works. So really the mind is affected by what we do with the body, and our thoughts can affect our body too. So it's important to understand that the mind is organised by the brain, so that is the organ of the mind, but the nervous system is the most important thing to understand because it's the conductor of our thoughts. And the nervous system has two ways, or two states of being. And the first one that we're often quite familiar with is the fight or flight response. You may have heard about that one. And the fight or flight response is when adrenaline is set off in our body and blood is drained out towards the hands and the feet so that we're able to fight or to run. And that's built into every mammal throughout the whole world from the beginning of time. And as you can understand, it's quite an essential part of being a mammal, because if we are afraid, we need to be able to fight or to flee. But what's really interesting is that the fight or flight response, fears, even if they're held within our thought processes, can activate this. And it's crucial that that fight or flight response doesn't ever come in to the labour process. So what we need to learn when we're preparing for birth is how to develop a fearless mind and how to be 100% confident before we go into labour. So a lot of women say to me, well, that's just impossible, because really I've been told a whole bunch of negative stories from the day I was born. My mum told me these stories just to grin and bear it. And my friends have told me they've done lots of things in preparation, but things didn't ever go to plan. And then you walk into the supermarket and the odd person comes up to you now that you are pregnant, and they start telling you or debriefing their birth experience as well. So what's really important is that we start to become conscious of the fears that have been projected onto us, because the brain itself is incredibly plastic. It's open to suggestions, and those neural pathways are continually evolving and creating themselves. So we can create a fearful mind, or we can actually surround ourselves with positive knowledge and understanding and positive stories, and that can reprogram our brains into actually looking forward to birth and being confident. The other essential part to understand that is the opposition to fight or flight is the relaxation response. And every single human being has this. It's your greatest inner resource, the greatest asset that every woman and man can take into the labour room. So the relaxation response is a bodily calm that everybody can evoke through very simple mental focusing and breathing techniques. So we're going to talk about that more in lesson 2, learning some of those skills. But I think from me and from watching other women who practice that relaxation response throughout their pregnancy, it's quite clear that they can carry that into their birth and actually make their birth a very calm and enjoyable experience. So the key to understanding the effects, the physiological effects of fear or relaxation on the body is crucial, because we need to understand that the fears that we hold in our mind actually have a profound effect. And when we're afraid, we get a restriction in the blood vessels in the body, and that reduces the amount of oxygen that goes to the uterus muscle to allow it to function. And it also reduces the amount of oxygen that goes to our baby. So it causes great stress on our babies and on our bodies by holding fear. The other thing that's crucial to understand is the hormones of labour. And the primary hormone for our labour is one called oxytocin. And oxytocin is the hormone of love. And when we have oxytocin creating the contractions, it can only be interrupted by adrenaline and catecholamines, these stress hormones, which come about through the fear that we hold within our mind. So fear creates tension, and tension creates pain. And that's called a syndrome. It's the fear, tension, pain syndrome. So what we suggest in SheBirths is that through intellectual understanding and knowledge of how the body works, we actually start to develop a faith and a trust in our bodies. And you can only do that actually through going through that process of really clearly understanding the way the pelvis opens, the way the cervix opens, how the sexual organs are created and they can expand and contract, and how we can actually focus our minds to create a relaxation response in the body. So I hope lesson number 1 has given you an insight into the mind and the body, how it's connected and how it works. And I hope it's giving you some insight into what you can start to look at and what you want to start surrounding yourself with right now during your pregnancy. And lesson number 2, we're going to focus a lot more on those inner resources and how we can generate a relaxation response in the body-mind.